So what do you do when you are faced with a wall? Thank you for moving the wall of the piano, Travis. My earliest memory of a wall coming tumbling down was November 9th, 1989, the day the Berlin Wall fell, and the way my family gathered around our small television, just like families gathered around their TV sets across the neighborhood, across the country, and across the world to see young people scaling that wall. You remember that? Which had become a concrete graffiti canvas at that point. And it was designed to control immigration patterns. This has always been the history of walls, to control people moving, keeping some people out, others in. And yet, humans, we are migratory. People have always immigrated. It is part of human history. It is also part of human behavior, like flocks of birds, like a flamboyance of flamingos, like a pandemonium of parrots, like a committee of vultures. I just got really excited about those. We too migrate for reasons of weather, prospecting, escaping violence, for reasons of family, seeking hope, food or resources. Always have, always will. Some of you this week have sent me pictures of yourselves standing on or in front of famous walls, including the Berlin Wall. And some of us, I'll wager, have a piece of the Berlin Wall somewhere in our homes to hold in our memories and in our collective reality that some walls really do come tumbling down. But what do you do when you are faced with a wall? What does a wall do to you, to your psyche, to your body? One of my favorite biblical characters appears in the book of Joshua. Her name is Rahab. She's a prostitute living in the city of Jericho. And when the Israelites, now under Joshua's leadership, decide to take that walled city as their first strategic military move to conquer Canaan, they first send 2 spies on ahead to investigate the military strength of Jericho. These 2 spies find hospitality in the home of Rahab because her home was literally built into the wall. I love that Rahab lives in the wall. She is a sex worker, savvy, scrappy. She is a survivor. If the people within that walled city represent the civilized, the workers, the slaves and masters to each other and to empire, and those unwalled nomads submit to a higher principle and purpose, well then Rahab inhabits both worlds. Rahab hides the Israelite spies from the officers of Jericho, and she strikes a deal with them. She agrees to help them survive and spy on the town, and she shares crucial military information with them. But in return, she says they must spare her life and the life of her family. And in this way, Rahab charts a new course for herself and for her lineage. She tells the spies that all the people of Jericho's hearts melt in fear against Joshua's Israelite army. And so these spies agreed to protect her as she protected them, and they agree that if there is bloodshed, she should throw down a red cord from her window, and the Israelites will skip her and her family's home in the massacre. And so the Israelite spies sleep on her roof until they depart Jericho a few nights later, still unseen. The spies then go to inform Joshua that the entire city of Jericho fears them. So Joshua orders his army to march around the city once a day for 6 days. While marching, the soldiers play their trumpets as the priests carry the Ark of the Covenant around the city of Jericho in a 6-day battle cry. And so the fear inside the walls builds and builds. And on the seventh day, the Israelites marched around that wall of Jericho 7 times. Joshua assures all of them that everyone in the city must be slain except Rahab and her family. And so at Joshua's orders, the military produces a powerful roar. A roar so powerful, Jericho's walls miraculously tumble down. The Israelite army races in, quickly conquering the city, and as promised, only Rahab and her family were spared. In this story, Rahab, the wall dweller, her parents, her siblings, and all their children survive. When a woman such as Rahab prevails and survives and goes on to ensure the survival of others, she reveals a different reality, a reality in which sex workers are at the center of the story, no longer banished to the edges of society. And this theme of survival and subversion can help us chart our course for this decade where we are now. If we are neither the war general nor the political leader, what power do we have? Quite a lot of power, as it turns out. See, in these days of rage and chaos, when entire continents appear to be burning, when our political leaders bring us to the brink of sudden war as a mere diversion tactic, no matter the cost of life, when the fabric of Western ways of life are pulling at the seams and ripping apart, well, there are walls we must face. And in God's story, in this biblical story, it is important to note that some walls cannot be conquered with bombs, excavators, nor political decrees, but with a collective roar. And also remember, the people of Jericho lost the battle because they succumbed to their own fear of those unwalled travelers out there. So we must not be tempted by a campaign that will make you afraid of people on the other side of a wall. Not just a real wall, and not even a wall of ideas. So how can we preserve our spirits, our sanity, and our collective resilience when we reach a wall? Whether it be a Facebook wall, or a wall at our southern border, or a wall of misunderstanding and pain, or all the walls we erect to protect ourselves, to hold each other in place. The Nurikabe is a spirit from Japanese folklore. Its name translates to plaster wall, and it is said to manifest as an invisible wall that impedes or misdirects travelers walking at night. The Nurikabe takes form as a wall, usually invisible, that blocks the path of travelers as they are walking. And some versions of the legend say that trying to go around this wall is futile, as it extends forever. It has been suggested that the legend of the Nurikabe was created to explain travelers losing their bearings on long journeys. And so, as we journey into this new decade, we will face this trickster spirit, a wall that may seem impassable. We may face walls that appear to go on forever. And if we find ourselves among the walled, then we must not fall prey to the battle cry march going on all around us. Let us not be like the people of Jericho, whose hearts melt in fear of those outside our walls. Let us instead learn from the brilliant subversiveness of Rahab, a sex worker, a woman whose negotiation skills and self-preservation skills sustained her family's resilience and her lineage, while others perished in fear all around her. It is 2020, the year 2020, and it is we who must roar into these 20s and not quake in fear of some inevitable doom. Walls are designed to incite fear, to be formidable, but the poet reminds us, where there's a wall, there are words to whisper by loose bricks, wailing prayers to utter, birds to carry messages taped to their feet. There are letters to be written, poems even. So if you are thinking, who am I to scale a wall? For I have never been that kind of person. These times call for deep courage. And I believe we can carry each other out of fear together. And if you are thinking, who am I to carry messages to those who are walled off from me? Well, I want you to know that if you are willing, there is a way. Now, I have been speaking metaphorically, allegorically, and I will now speak practically of what I mean. If we can take our Unitarian Universalist commitment to seek truth, whatever that means to us, to encourage others to seek their truth, then this is what it will take. First, communicate in person whenever possible. I don't really know if that is a wild thing to say in this day and age, but I'm just going to say it. Whenever possible, communicate in person. What someone shares on social media or anywhere online is the beginning of the conversation and not the end. This is not a time to rest in our assumptions or our projections or our tendency to assume the worst of people. This is a time to pick up the phone, knock on the door, reach out, and learn more of the story. And second, do not participate in spreading misinformation, even if it benefits your side of the story. Perhaps especially if it benefits your side of the story. Make a commitment right now to read past the headline and seek the truth to the best of your ability. And 3, practice deep listening and know thyself. This is the hardest part. This will be rigorous work. And it will require deep self-compassion coupled with deep humility. We will work on this together in community, in worship, and beyond in other ways too. Next, participate in your democracy. Be a leader. Help others vote and contribute. Our future is not written, and our outcome is not yet known. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. We do not know what is coming. We do not yet know. Pray for people who would declare themselves your enemy. Or if you do not pray, hold them in meditation and compassion in your heart. And if you have no enemies, then you are staying safer than these times allow, and too safe. You probably have enemies who don't even know you, who you have never met, but who oppose that which you stand for. Prayer is like flexing your empathy muscle. It's really like really flexing that empathy muscle. And finally, ground yourself. Respond, don't react. These are reactive times. Response requires sitting with discomfort, moving slower, taking care of yourself. And it probably also requires prayer. This is how we will stay subversive and how we will survive, how we can be wall dwellers instead of falling into that false duality of those who are walled in and those who are being kept out. These are complex times. If we are to be wall dwellers like Rahab, making a way for ourselves and others to thrive, well then we must be able to hold these complexities, these complex truths, in a time where we are being asked to think too simple. We actually need to think dialectically. That's what the behavioral therapists call it. More than anything, this complex thinking is what is required. Behavioral therapist Robin Chancer reminds us that in this moment, We must stay clear to the reality that people are rarely fully good nor fully evil. People are rarely fully good nor fully evil. I'm not saying nobody, but rarely. The truth is, most of us are complex webs of goodness, love, selfishness, and aggression. Individuals are not selfless or selfish. They are selfless and selfish. Our political terrain includes progression and regression. Embracing ambivalence, paradox, and shades of gray, well, that's what promotes a sense of wholeness, sense of flexibility. We become less outraged when circumstances don't fit within our rigid expectations. We do good things because they are good, but results are not guaranteed. That's another thing we need to remember going into this decade. Do good things because they are good and not to guarantee the outcome. Sometimes circumstances work out as we hope, and sometimes they do not. Most often, the circumstances are too complicated to understand fully. This is how we will build our resilience. And finally, we are responsible for our world. Believing in some mysterious force called progress absolves us all of responsibility. So let's not do that. Similarly, faith that God has a plan can promote complacency, but compassion, love, and affirming values exist because people intentionally work toward them. Claiming responsibility focuses our attention on what we can do to improve our world. Stay grounded in radical love for people who have long felt like they've been outsiders. One simple way to tear down a wall is to create spaces where outsiders feel more loved, more welcomed, more free. So I want to welcome you to the Roaring 20s, where our commitments and our resolve must stay fresh and renewed. Because faint as in a dream is the voice that calls from the belly of the wall. Amen. Blessed be.